Now let's get you the live presser of Norway and India's joint press conference that's taking place. Let's listen in.
Distinguished guests, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen, I welcome you to today's ceremony where one document will be exchanged. We have the MOU on India-Norway Ocean Dialogue between the Ministry of External Affairs, Government of India, and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Government of Norway. This will be exchanged on the Norwegian side by His Excellency Mr. Niels Ragnar Kamsvåg, Ambassador of Norway to India, and on the Indian side by Shri Gitesh Sharma, Secretary West, Ministry of External Affairs. Excellencies, this concludes the agreement exchange ceremony. I now request the spokesperson of the External Affairs Ministry to conduct the proceedings. Thank you.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I welcome you all to this press statement event. To begin the proceedings, may I request the Honorable Prime Minister of India, Shri Narendra Modi ji, to deliver his statement to the press.
Your Excellency, प्रधानमंत्री Erna Solberg, नॉर्वे से यहाँ आए सभी विशिष्ट अतिथिगण, फ्रेंड्स, पिछले वर्ष स्टॉकहोम में जब मैं प्रधानमंत्री सॉलबर्ग से मिला था तो मैंने उन्हें भारत आने का निमंत्रण दिया था और मुझे प्रसन्नता है कि आज मुझे भारत में उनका स्वागत करने का अवसर मिला। प्रधानमंत्री जी की यह पहली भारत यात्रा है और इसलिए भी विशेष है कि आज वे रायसीना डायलॉग के उद्घाटन समारोह को संबोधित करेगी। इसके लिए मैं उनका हृदय से आभार प्रकट करता हूं। फ्रेंड्स, 2017 में G20 समिट के समय जब मैं प्रधानमंत्री सॉलबर्ग से मिला था तो उन्होंने मुझे एक फुटबॉल भेंट किया था। वैसे तो पिछले वर्ष फुटबॉल की दुनिया का जाना माना गोल्डन बॉल ये पुरस्कार नॉर्वे की महिला फुटबॉल खिलाड़ी आदा हेगरबर्ग को मिला है और इसके लिए मैं नॉर्वे को हार्दिक बधाई देता हूं। लेकिन प्रधानमंत्री जी ने फुटबॉल मुझे दी थी, उसका मायना कुछ और था। वह फुटबॉल खेल के गोल की नहीं बल्कि सस्टेनेबल डेवलपमेंट गोल्स की प्रतीक थी। प्रधानमंत्री सॉलबर्ग ने सस्टेनेबल डेवलपमेंट गोल्स को पाने की दिशा में वैश्विक प्रयासों को बहुत प्रोत्साहन दिया है। अपनी इस यात्रा में प्रधानमंत्री सॉलबर्ग ने भारत में नॉर्वे की नई ग्रीन एम्बेसी का उद्घाटन भी किया है और इसलिए प्रधानमंत्री जी के वैश्विक प्रयासों के लिए मैं उनकी जितनी प्रशंसा करूं वो कम है। सस्टेनेबल डेवलपमेंट गोल्स भारत के विकास लक्ष्यों से भी पूरी तरह मेल खाते हैं और हमारे लिए ये प्रसन्नता का विषय है कि दोनों देश मिलकर नॉर्वे इंडिया पार्टनरशिप इनिशिएटिव द्वारा मातृ एवं शिशु स्वास्थ्य के विषय पर सफल सहयोग कर रहे हैं। फ्रेंड्स, भारत और नॉर्वे के संबंधों में ट्रेड एंड इन्वेस्टमेंट का अहम महत्व है। नॉर्वे के गवर्नमेंट पेंशन फंड ग्लोबल ने भारत में लगभग $12 बिलियन का पोर्टफोलियो निवेश किया है। मुझे प्रसन्नता है कि प्रधानमंत्री जी के साथ नॉर्वे की 100 से भी ज्यादा कंपनियां के प्रतिनिधि भारत आए हैं। कल इंडिया नॉर्वे बिजनेस समिट में उनका भारत के बिजनेस लीडर्स के साथ उपयोगी इंटरेक्शन हुआ है। मुझे विश्वास है कि आने वाले समय में पोर्टफोलियो निवेश और फॉरेन डायरेक्ट इन्वेस्टमेंट दोनों में नॉर्वे की कंपनियां भारत की अपार संभावनाओं से लाभ उठाएगी। विशेष रूप से सागरमाला कार्यक्रम के अंतर्गत भारत में शिप बिल्डिंग, पोर्ट्स और पोर्टलेट डेवलपमेंट में नॉर्वे की कंपनियां के लिए बहुत अवसर बन रहे हैं। फ्रेंड्स, इसी से जुड़ा हुआ विषय है ओशन इकोनॉमी। भारत के विकास और समृद्धि के लिए यह क्षेत्र अत्यंत महत्वपूर्ण है। भारत की लगभग 15% जनसंख्या कोस्टल जिलों में रहती है। उनका जीवन एक प्रकार से सीधे रूप से ओशन इकोनॉमी से जुड़ा हुआ है। और यदि अप्रत्यक्ष रूप को देखें तो भारत के कोस्टल राज्यों की जनसंख्या 500 मिलियन से भी अधिक है। और ओशन इकोनॉमी के विषय पर नॉर्वे की महारत का अंदाज आप इस बात से लगा सकते हैं कि नॉर्वे के निर्यात में 70% हिस्सा नॉर्वे की सामुद्रिक इंडस्ट्री का है। और इसलिए मुझे प्रसन्नता है कि आज हमने इस महत्वपूर्ण क्षेत्र में सहयोग का एक नया आयाम हमारे संबंधों में जोड़ा है। हमारा द्विपक्षीय ओशन डायलॉग इस क्षेत्र से जुड़े सभी सेक्टर्स में हमारे सहयोग को दिशा देगा। फ्रेंड्स, अंतर्राष्ट्रीय मंच पर भी भारत और नॉर्वे का आपसी सहयोग बहुत ही मजबूत है। यूएन सिक्योरिटी काउंसिल रिफॉर्म्स, मल्टीलेटरल एक्सपोर्ट कंट्रोल रेजिम और आतंकवाद जैसे अनेक विषय हैं जिन पर हम दोनों बहुत करीबी सहयोग और समन्वय के साथ काम कर रहे हैं। आज हमने अपने सहयोग के सभी क्षेत्रों की समीक्षा की और इन्हें नई ऊर्जा और दिशा देने के विषयों पर भी विस्तार से चर्चा की। एक्सेलेंसी, आपने भारत आने का मेरा निमंत्रण स्वीकार किया, इसके लिए मैं एक बार फिर आपको हृदय से धन्यवाद करता हूं। आज शाम रायसीना डायलॉग में आपका संबोधन सुनने के लिए हम सभी बहुत उत्सुक हैं। मैं आशा करता हूं कि आपकी यह भारत यात्रा बहुत ही सुखद और सफल होगी। बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद।
Thank you, sir. Now it is my pleasure to invite the Prime Minister of Norway, Her Excellency Mrs. Erna Solberg, to deliver her statement.
Mr. Prime Minister, thank you very much for the warm welcome that I and my delegation have received during our visit to India. And I think we have increased the partnership between our two countries. We are moving in a very positive direction. We've had fruitful discussions on a broad set of issues, including how we can accelerate progress towards sustainable development goals, and steps we can take to further strengthen our bilateral ties. And given the importance of India's economy and the size of its territory and population, the world will not be able to reach the sustainable goals unless India is on board. And I have seen impressive improvements and work done in India, especially on a favorite subject of mine, women's empowerment, where the work is going hard on. Women as a force in local communities should be even further strengthened in the years to come. Access to education, to quality education, to make sure that they are participating in the workforce and making the most of their talent. I usually say that no country is rich enough to not use half of the talent in their population. And I saw yesterday on my field trip that you are doing hard work to really accelerate women's participation and women's empowerment. As the world's largest democracy, India plays an important role both regionally and globally. We've had an open and constructive dialogue on how we can work more closely together to protect and develop rule-based international governance. I think it's important that both big countries like India and smaller countries like Norway join forces to work for the benefit and talk about the benefits of multilateralism in a time where there is increased protectionism. Multilateralism is not just about trade and economy, it's also about making the international organizations function, for example, through reform of the UN. The UN needs to reform in the way they are working, and they need to be representative of the world the way it looks today, not the world as it was seen in 1940s. We have to make sure that that is a change in the future. But we also have to make sure that we are delivering good services in the multilateral to the people of the countries that we are governing. The question is also always, do we manage to put our policies into a practice where we are increasing the benefits? And that's about what the 17 SDGs is all about. We have agreed to intensify our cooperation on issues relating to the seas, to a new joint task force on the blue economy, focusing on integrated ocean management. India is an ocean country. We first started our practical cooperation through fishery projects between Norway and India, and we are intensifying the work in the future on the ocean economy. Oceans are important for jobs, for clean seas, for resources. It's one of the least explored parts of the world, which is below the ocean. It can create more jobs, more medicine, new experiences for us all. That means we have to keep it clean and we have to manage the resources so that it both benefits the people but also in a generational perspective that we have clean oceans in the future. We have identified new opportunities for collaborating in fields also such as energy, climate and the environment. The Norwegian government recently launched a new strategy for our engagement with India. This is a testimony to how important we attach our bilateral relations. The strategy outlines priorities and a common direction for the various sectors of the Norwegian governments in the time ahead. India's rapid economic development provides a good basis for forging new ties between our private sectors. On this official visit, we have been accompanied by a large and diverse business delegation from Norway. They have been discussing with Indian partners for 2 days. They show that there are great opportunities in jobs in both countries, in making sure that we can both grow and create benefits to our societies by cooperating. That is in both our countries' interests, and it's an example on how international cooperation and international trade, in fact, is a benefit to the rest of the world. We need to make sure that we create more jobs in the world in total. Good agreements and cooperation between businesses is important for that. So I look forward to seeing more Indians in Norway and more Norwegians in India to create jobs and economic opportunities. Prime Minister Modi and I share the view that there is a large untapped potential for developing strong links between Norwegian and Indian private sectors. And I think we have started on finding new areas to work. And on the research and development, where we already have a large involvement, which we can increase even further in the future. And finally, as I've said, this has been a very nice welcome for us in India, and I hope I have the pleasure of welcoming you back to Norway. I have invited Prime Minister Modi to come to Norway, and I look forward to receiving you there. I hope you will find the time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Excellency. This concludes the press event. Thank you all for joining.
That was the Norwegian Prime Minister Erna Solberg and Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi addressing a joint press conference, a part of the bilateral dialogue between the two countries. It was Prime Minister Modi who just focused on how Norway can play an integral role in the Indian economy, since Norway's economy is 70% driven and contributed by the ocean, which is why Norway can play an important role in developing India's ocean and providing job opportunities in India, where shipbuilding and ports is something that India is offering in terms of tremendous opportunities. Ocean economy is something that India is looking forward to building, as India's 15% of population is inhabiting the coastal regions. And that is why the Indian Prime Minister highlighted the importance of Norway's contribution to the country, since Norway, as we all know, is heavily sustained by its oceans. And it was also just at the beginning of this press conference that an ocean dialogue agreement was arrived upon between the two countries. Prime Minister Modi also mentioned terrorism as one of the issues that was widely discussed, whereas Prime Minister Erna Solberg from Norway spoke about the increased and reviewed partnership between India and Norway. She also, interestingly enough, highlighted women's empowerment in India, which should be further strengthened in the country. And to bring us more details on this news story, I'm joined in by our principal diplomatic correspondent, Siddhant Sibal, who joins us live from Hyderabad House in New Delhi. Siddhant, it's very important to talk about the ocean dialogue that's just been arrived upon, and that is how India and Norway can actually grow closer. You must talk about how the ocean can actually play an important role in strengthening ties between India and Norway.
Well, that was the key focus, ocean dialogue and ocean cooperation. One of the documents, the only document actually that was exchanged, was on ocean dialogue, ocean cooperation. Remember, a lot of Norwegian companies are in the entire port building, and the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi invited them, especially in India's Sagarmala project, which of course is across all the eastern and the western seaboard. He also gave an interesting fact. The Indian Prime Minister gave an interesting fact that 15% of India's population is, of course, dependent on the ocean, and it was, of course, reaffirmed by the Norwegian Prime Minister, who said that in the oceans lies the future, and through this only India and Norway can cooperate. And both the leaders, in a sense, were building on the India-Nordic summit which took place last year, the first summit which took place last year in Stockholm, in which all the Nordic leaders were there, and where he met the Norwegian Prime Minister for the second time. The first time both the leaders met were in the year 2017 on the sidelines of the G20 summit in Hamburg, in which a football was given by the Norwegian Prime Minister, in which it was written SDG, that means Sustainable Development Goals, and that was another crux of the entire press statement and the dialogue between the Indian Prime Minister and the Prime Minister of Norway on sustainable development goal. The Norwegian Prime Minister clearly said that if we really want to achieve the sustainable development goal, India has to move forward, because India is a large country, and without India's support, those goals won't be possible.
Right. India's support is, of course, indeed very important, as Prime Minister Solberg also mentioned that, you know, India has a huge, massive population, and for sustainability for the world to keep India aside will not be possible. Very rightly mentioned by you, Siddhant. Siddhant, also important to talk about the Raisina dialogue, you know, that Prime Minister Solberg will be addressing in the evening, and Indian Prime Minister Modi also alluded to it. So it's important to talk about what we can expect to emerge out of the Raisina dialogue.
Well, the Prime Minister of Norway has championed the cause not of climate change and sustainable development goal, but also women empowerment. Yesterday, one of the key engagement was to go to a school where, of course, she met the children, the girl child there, and it basically complements the Indian government's policy of Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao, and that is why that remained the key focus. We know that the Norwegian Prime Minister, in her press statement from the Hyderabad House, also mentioned about women's empowerment. She said that half the population needs to be part of the economy, but by and large that is going to be the key focus. And remember, Raisina dialogue has become a key focus in India's diplomatic calendar. This is the fourth Raisina dialogue, and already we have seen how much enthusiasm is there for the entire dialogue. There are approximately 6 foreign ministers who are participating in New Delhi. Of course, is buzzing with activity, diplomatic activity. The Iranian foreign minister Minister is already there. He has engaged with the Transport Minister, especially on the Chabar port. Yesterday we saw the Japanese Foreign Minister, who is on a 3-day visit. He will be, of course, addressing separate event in the evening. He met the External Affairs Minister and called on Prime Minister Narendra Modi. But the key focus will be the key outcomes and India's position in the world space. This is a track to diplomacy which takes place annually in the second week of January in New Delhi, and it has been growing in its scale. And this year we expect a lot of outcomes, especially by the people who are participating. And there is, of course, an informal Quad meeting which also takes place with the army, the naval chiefs participating of the Quad countries, India, US, Japan, and Australia. Interestingly, the French are also participating. The French, the naval chief is here in New Delhi. So clearly, it shows India's growing stature at the World Fair.
Right. Clearly, India's growing stature in the World Fair, as you rightly mentioned, and it is the Raisina Dialogue is going to be India's flagship conference on geopolitics and geoeconomics. Coming to Norway as a country, Siddhant, we all know that they've had a history of, conflict resolution, be it Sri Lanka or Colombia. But coming to India, Prime Minister Solberg created quite a storm as she rolled out interviews to various news publications and channels. She spoke about, this is exactly what she had to say to one of the channels, that if there is an interest from the partners, we will try to use the mechanisms that we know. So what can we expect as far as India's stance is concerned? Is India welcoming Norway's intervention over there? And what is Norway's stance in the larger picture?
Well, I think that part has got a lot of eyeballs here in New Delhi, because she, of course, gave lot interviews, and of course there was a press conference in which Wion was also present late last night at the new Norwegian embassy, a green compound. But by and large, focusing on Norway's role, Norway has played a role in mediation, whether it's Colombia or Sri Lanka. The Norwegian Prime Minister accepted that in Sri Lanka it was not a successful attempt, but by and large the question was asked that is Norway keen to mediate between India and Pakistan on Kashmir? What she said was that if both the parties invite, only then a mediation can take place. But the official policy of the Norwegian government is, if all the parties do not invite, they will not mediate. That clearly states that she is saying no to this, because India has officially said that there is no role for a third party in India-Pakistan bilateral issue. Both India and Pakistan have to resolve their issue through the Shimla Agreement and the Lahore Agreement. And clearly, the Norwegian Prime Minister also mentioned about the former Norwegian Prime Minister's visit in September of 2018, which of course had, media saying that there might be a mediation role the Norwegian government is trying to play. She clearly dismissed those. She said that the former Norwegian Prime Minister was on a personal visit, and the Norwegian government in no manner is trying to mediate between India and Pakistan. She said that India and Pakistan are huge countries. They can handle maturely things, and it's up to New Delhi and Islamabad to decide when they will sit together. Clearly out of context she was quoted, but clearly Norway is saying that it won't intervene in India-Pakistan.
All right, so I take you on that she has been quoted out of context, and that Norway has no intention to intervene between India and Pakistan. We made that amply clear here on Wion. Thank you so much for bringing us all the latest on this news story. Siddhant Sibal reporting for us there.